Hey, quick question before we even start today. When someone speaks to you in English, what happens inside your head first? Do you hear the English, translate it into your language, think of an answer in your language, then translate that answer back into English, and then finally speak? If that sounds familiar, stay right here, because what we are talking about today might actually change the way you learn English forever.
Welcome back to English Chats Daily. I am George, and I am here with Eva. And today we're going into something that almost every English learner struggles with, but almost nobody talks about directly. We are talking about how to stop translating in your head and how to actually start thinking in English.
And I want to say something honest right from the beginning. This is not easy. It is not a magic trick, but it is absolutely trainable. And by the end of today, you are going to have a real, simple, step-by-step system that you can start using today. Not next week, not when you feel ready, today.
But first, Eva, let me ask you something. Do you remember the first time you tried to have a real conversation in English? Not in a classroom, but in real life? Maybe at work or with a native speaker or even at an airport?
Oh, completely. I remember standing at a coffee shop once, and the person behind the counter asked me something simple. Something like, "Do you want room for cream?" And my brain just froze. I knew the words, I had studied English for years, but in that moment the translation process was so slow that I just smiled and nodded and had no idea what I agreed to. I got a coffee I did not want.
That story is so real, and I think every single person watching this right now has had a version of that moment. The freeze, the panic, the smile and nod. And here's what's actually happening in those moments. Your brain is running two languages at the same time, like two programs open on a slow computer. And the translation process is the thing slowing everything down.
Exactly. And here's the thing people don't realize. The problem is not your vocabulary. It's not your grammar. It's not even your confidence, at least not at first. The real problem is the habit, the mental habit of always stopping to translate. And habits, as we know, are incredibly powerful and also incredibly changeable.
And that word habit is actually the key to everything we are going to talk about today, because thinking in English is not a talent. It's not something some people are born with. It's a habit. And like any habit, it can be built step by step over time with the right system.
There's a book we want to mention naturally today, and it's Atomic Habits by James Clear. Now, we're not going to read it to you or lecture about it, but there's one idea from that book that fits perfectly here. James Clear talks about how every habit is basically a loop. There's a cue, a routine, and a reward. And right now, for most learners, the cue is hearing English, the routine is translating it, and the reward is feeling safe because you understood it in your own language. The brain thinks it's helping you, but it's actually keeping you stuck.
Wait, think about that for a second. Your brain is not being lazy. It's actually trying to protect you. It found a system that works. Translate first, then respond. And it keeps using that system because it feels safe. But safe and effective are two very different things when it comes to language learning.
So the goal is not to punish yourself for translating. The goal is to build a new habit loop, a new cue, a new routine, and a new reward. And that's exactly what we're going to give you today, a practical system you can use every single day in about 10 minutes.
Before we get to the system, though, I want to talk about something that most people get completely wrong. Most learners say things like, "I'll practice English when I feel motivated," or "I'll speak more when I feel confident." And George, you know exactly what I'm going to say about that, right?
Motivation is a feeling, and feelings come and go. You cannot build a language skill on something that disappears when you are tired or stressed or busy. This connects to another book we love, The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And the core idea there is so simple but so powerful. Small actions done consistently every day create results that feel almost invisible at first, but then they compound into something huge over time.
So, learning to think in English is not about one big effort. It is not about doing a 5-hour English marathon on Sunday and then doing nothing for the rest of the week. It is about doing something small every single day until the new habit replaces the old one. 10 minutes a day beats 1 hour once a week, every time.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because there's actual science behind this. When you practice thinking in a new language, you're literally rewiring your brain. You're building new neural pathways, and those pathways get stronger every time you use them. Just like a path in a forest gets clearer the more people walk on it. The first time you walk through, it's difficult. There are branches everywhere. But after 100 times, it becomes a clear road.
Okay, so let us talk about the environment piece, because this is something most learners completely skip. We talked about systems, right? But a system only works if your environment supports it. James Clear makes this point beautifully. He says that motivation is overrated, and environment often matters more. If you want to think in English, your environment needs to speak English to you before you even try to speak it yourself.
Let me make this practical. Do you have a notebook near your desk or your bed or wherever you spend time? If that notebook is in your native language, it's sending you a message. But if that notebook has English words in it, if it's visible, if you see it every day, it becomes a cue. It reminds your brain that English is part of your life. It's not something that lives only in a classroom or on an app. It's right there, next to your coffee.
Small cue, huge effect. And speaking of small things, here's a challenge. Right now, wherever you're watching this, look around and name 5 things in English, just in your head. Do it quickly. The table, the window, the phone, the cup, the chair. Did you do it? Good, because that, believe it or not, is the beginning of thinking in English. You just did it.
That's actually the first step of the system we want to share with you today. We're calling it the 10-minute Think in English routine. And you don't need special tools. You don't need a tutor. You don't need a perfect schedule. You just need 10 minutes and a little bit of courage.
All right, let's walk through it together. Step 1. Look around your environment and describe it in English. Not in your head silently either, out loud. This is important. Say it out loud. Right now, your brain might resist this. It feels silly, maybe a little embarrassing, especially if you're alone. But that discomfort is actually the feeling of a new neural pathway forming. It's the feeling of change.
You might say something like, I'm sitting at my desk. There's a white cup next to my laptop. The room is quiet and a little cold. That's it. Simple sentences. No complex grammar needed. You're not writing a novel. You're training your brain to connect what it sees with English words directly, without the detour through your native language.
Step 2. Ask yourself 3 simple questions in English and answer them out loud. Again, out loud. The questions can be anything. What did I do this morning? What am I thinking about right now? What do I want to do later today? These questions force your brain to generate English, not translate it. You're creating the language, not converting it.
And here is what happens when you do this regularly. At first, you will pause. You will search for words. You might even slip into your native language for a second. That is completely fine. Do not stop. Do not judge yourself. Just keep going. Because every time you push through that pause, you're strengthening that path in the forest we talked about. Step 3. Use 2 new words in your speaking practice. Not 10 words, not 20, just 2. This is the slight edge principle in action. Small, consistent input every single day. Jeff Olson talks about how people underestimate what daily small actions do over time. 2 words a day sounds like nothing, but 2 words a day for a year is over 700 new words living in your active vocabulary. Not just words you recognize, but words you can actually use.
And when we say use the words, we do not mean repeat them 10 times like a robot. We mean use them in a real thought, a real moment, a real sentence. Let us do an example right now. Let us say your 2 words today are hesitate and surroundings. Hesitate means to pause before doing something because you are unsure. Surroundings means everything around you, the environment you are in.
Now, step 4. Create one complete sentence using both words. Just one. Something like, I sometimes hesitate to speak because I do not feel comfortable in my surroundings. That's it. One sentence, but it's yours. You built it. You connected 2 new words to a real emotion you have probably felt. And that connection makes the words stick in a way that a word list never will.
Step 5 is the most important one, and also the one most people want to skip. Speak out loud for at least 3 minutes. Anything. Tell a story about your day. Describe a movie you watched. Talk about a problem you're trying to solve. It doesn't matter what you talk about. What matters is that your mouth, your voice, and your brain are all working together in English at the same time.
Here's the thing about speaking out loud that nobody warns you about. It's hard. It's awkward. It feels strange, especially if English is not the language you grew up speaking. But that strangeness is not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that you're doing something new. And new is exactly where growth lives.
Now, let us pause here for a moment because we're halfway through today and I want to make sure this is landing. So let me recap what we've covered so far. 1. Translating in your head is a habit, not a permanent condition. 2. Habits can be changed with the right system and the right environment. 3. Motivation is unreliable, but systems are consistent. 4. The 10-minute routine is the system. Describe surroundings, ask yourself questions, use 2 new words, build 1 sentence, speak out loud. That's the engine. Now, let's talk about why it works and what keeps most people from actually doing it.
So here's a pattern we see all the time. A learner hears about a system like this, gets excited, tries it for 3 days, doesn't feel instant results, and stops. Sound familiar? And here's why that happens. Our brains are wired to look for immediate rewards. When you don't feel fluent after 3 days, your brain tells you it's not working. But that's completely wrong. The results are happening. You just can't see them yet.
This is the slight edge again. Jeff Olson describes it as the double-edged sword of daily habits. The same actions that build you up over time are so small that they're also easy to skip. Missing 1 day feels harmless, missing a week feels harmless, but 6 months later you look back and realize you either built something or you built nothing, and the daily choices were the only difference.
And James Clear adds something to this that I find incredibly powerful. He says that every action you take is a vote for the type of person you want to become. So when you do your 10-minute English thinking routine today, you're not just practicing vocabulary, you're voting for your identity as someone who thinks in English, and every vote matters.
So let's talk about identity for a second, because this is actually the deepest level of language learning and almost nobody talks about it. Most learners think of English as a skill they're adding on top of who they are, like a hat they put on. But the most fluent non-native English speakers you'll ever meet don't treat English as a hat. They've made it part of who they are. And that shift, that identity shift, is something you can begin practicing today.
Here's a real example. Let's say you have a job interview coming up in English. Most learners will practice scripts, they'll memorize answers, they'll rehearse for hours the night before. And then they get into the interview, someone asks an unexpected question, and the brain freezes because the script didn't include that question.
But a learner who has been doing daily thinking practice for even a few weeks responds differently. Not perfectly, not like a native speaker, but their brain has been doing this every day. It has been generating English from real thoughts. So when the unexpected question comes, there is at least a path in the forest. It is not paved, it is not perfect, but it is there.
And that is the goal. Not perfection, not zero mistakes. The goal is a brain that reaches for English first, not as a last resort. A brain that does not need to translate because it has been thinking directly in the language often enough that it starts to feel natural.
Let me ask you something now. Think about a moment in your life when you wanted to say something in English, but you hesitated. Maybe it was at work, maybe it was with a friend, maybe it was in a store or at a restaurant. How did that feel? Not good, right? There is a kind of quiet frustration that comes with knowing exactly what you want to say, but not being able to say it fast enough.
That frustration is real, and it is valid. And here's something I want you to know. That frustration is not evidence that you cannot do this. It is evidence that you care, that you want more, and wanting more is the beginning of everything.
Now, there is one more thing we want to address today, and it's something shy learners deal with more than anyone. The fear of sounding stupid, of making mistakes in front of people, of being judged for your accent or your grammar. And I want to say something very directly.
Nobody in this world became fluent in a second language by staying silent. Not one person. Fluency is built in the speaking. It is built in the mistakes. It is built in the awkward pauses and the wrong words and the sentences that came out a little wrong. Those are not failures. Those are the construction materials. You cannot build a house by thinking about bricks. You have to actually lay them.
And here's a reframe that might help if you're someone who gets very anxious about speaking in English. When you make a mistake in English, you're not showing people that you're uneducated or unintelligent. You're showing them that you're doing something extraordinarily difficult. Every mistake is proof of effort. Wear it proudly.
All right, let's bring everything together now, because we want to make sure you walk away from today with something real, not just inspiration, real action steps.
Here's your 3-step plan starting today. Step 1. Set a daily 10-minute English thinking time, same time every day if possible. Morning works well for many people. Put it in your phone as a reminder if you need to. The cue creates the habit. Make it easy to start by not requiring any setup. You just need yourself and 10 minutes.
Step 2. Keep an English notebook visible somewhere in your daily life, on your desk, next to your bed, in your bag. Write 2 new words in it every day and write 1 sentence using both words. Don't worry about perfect handwriting or perfect spelling. The act of writing it by hand activates a different kind of memory than typing. And keeping it visible means your environment is speaking English to you every time you see it.
And step 3, do the 5-part routine we walked through today, every single day. Describe your surroundings out loud. Ask yourself 3 questions and answer them. Use your 2 new words. Build 1 sentence with both. Speak freely for 3 minutes about anything. That's the whole system, and it takes 10 minutes. Most people spend more than 10 minutes scrolling through their phone before breakfast. This is 10 minutes that will actually change something.
And here is what we want you to know about the timeline. You will not feel fluent after 1 week. You might not feel dramatically different after 2 weeks either. But around the 1-month mark, something starts to shift. Words come a little faster. Sentences feel a little more natural. The translation step gets shorter and then shorter. And then, for some things, it disappears completely. That is the compounding effect. That is the slight edge doing its work silently in the background every single day.
We also want to mention, because we know many of you have asked, the books we referenced today, Atomic Habits by Atomic Claire and The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson, are genuinely worth reading if you want to go deeper on habits and personal growth in general. We have left the links in the pinned comment below this video, so you can find them easily without having to search. Check that out when you finish watching.
And one last thing before we close. We want to say something to the shy learners, the ones who have been watching for a while but maybe have not commented yet, have not spoken out loud in English yet today. This episode was made with you especially in mind, because you are not behind, you are not slower than other people, you are just at a different point in the path, and the path leads somewhere really good if you keep walking.
You are not someone who is trying to learn English. You are becoming someone who thinks in English. There's a difference. One is a task, the other is an identity, and every 10 minutes you give to this practice is a step deeper into that identity.
So here is your challenge for today. Do the 10-minute routine once before you sleep tonight. Just once. Name 5 things around you in English. Ask yourself 3 questions. Say 1 sentence using 2 new words out loud. And if you do it, come down to the comments and just write the word done. That's it, just the word done. Because we want to see how many of you are walking that path with us.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. This is English Chats Daily. We are Eva and George, and we'll see you in the next one. Keep going, keep speaking, keep thinking in English, because the version of you who does this every day, that person is already on their way.